There you see now how all your so-called power counts for absolutely nothing. How your entire empire of destruction comes crashing down, all because of one little cherry. One little. What a lovely ballet. It seems so full of warmth and color. Little. One little. This one. This one. This one. This one. Now, she's free. Not with that encouraging life.
Hi, it's Mo. I look bright, but I need to start updating this weekly vlog because it is Thursday, July 30th, and I finished 2 books this week. The first book that I finished was The Healing Season of Pottery by Yeon Somin. This is a Korean translated work, and it was translated from the Korean by Claire Richards. Getting a little bit of an early start on Women in Translation Month. I'm very excited to participate in Women in Translation Month, and I'm very excited to make a video detailing all the women in translation that I have read over the last 2 years, because I haven't made a video like that in 2 years. So I'm very excited about that. The Healing Season of Pottery is about a young woman has quit her job. She is a writer, and she had intended to write a novel when she was young, but then she became a screenwriter, and then she started working on this TV program as a screenwriter where she did various things. Like there was like a food show, but she also had this show that kind of ended her career where she decided that she didn't like the ethics involved in the show that she was doing, and she didn't like how it made her feel, so she decided to quit. And she's saved up quite a bit of money. She lives on her own. She's single. She moves into a new apartment building that's relatively inexpensive, and she's able to just kind of do nothing. And she's in a depression, and she doesn't really leave the house, and she struggles to find meaning in life after leaving her job. She's not really that close with her family. Her mother owns a restaurant, and she always thinks she can fall back on working in the restaurant, but her mother really doesn't want her to do that, so they kind of don't hang out that much or talk that much. And one day she's like, I just have to leave the house. In her new neighborhood, she doesn't walk that much, so she stumbles into a shop which she thinks is a coffee shop, but it's actually a pottery studio, and she feels good vibes there immediately. She becomes entranced by the women running the pottery studio, and then this book is about her deciding that she's going to take lessons at the pottery studio, about time there, about all the different people she meets, all the different people that come and go, and the life lessons that each person has or that she has to give to those people. So it's one of those Korean, Japanese, Asian books that have a message that's very much like The Full Moon Cafe. It's very much like Before the Coffee Gets Cold. It's very much about life lessons. It's very much about learning to love yourself, learning to accept your circumstances, learning to create new circumstances for yourself, to be ambitious, or to utilize your skills that maybe aren't the skills that you were utilizing in your job, but that you have in life, etc., etc. I took this one on vacation with me last week, and I finished it in the airport. We did have like an hour and a half or 2 hour delay on the plane, so I was able to finish this on audio, and I think I liked it. When I started reading it, I was reading it kind of both. I was looking at the page and reading, or at least checking in physically, but then I didn't bring this one with me on vacation, so the rest of the time that I read it and the majority of this book, I didn't have the physical book with me, and there were definitely a lot of characters that like blurred together to me because I couldn't visualize visualize their names. Like I couldn't see their names and read their names and kind of differentiate who they were. But it didn't really matter because of the way the story works and because of how each person has a lesson, and through context you figured out, you know, who it was, but it wasn't the person that was the most important, it was the lesson that was most important. It's not my favorite of those. I still think The Full Moon Cafe I really liked. I didn't love I thought Before the Coffee Got Cold was fine. I only read the first book in that. I've only read the first book in the Full Moon Cafe series. I think actually probably the one I liked the most was Days at the Murakami Bookshop, because it was very, very slim and I liked the bookshop aspect. I did definitely like the pottery aspect in this. I did think it was interesting and it did talk a lot about pottery, so it was fun, and I loved the atmosphere of the pottery shop, and the story behind the pottery shop was interesting as well. I have to go check my zucchini. My zucchini has to cool. Like many of these books, it was not a lot of substance. That's weird to say because obviously these are life lessons, so they are substantial. There is substance to the life lessons, but like there's just not a lot of actual plot and not a lot of actual character development, because these are all like kind of archetypes, or at very least they are just representations of the life lesson that you're supposed to learn as opposed to real people. I do think this one had a little bit more. There is a romance in this, and there is kind of subplot of that romance. So overall, I thought it was interesting. I wouldn't read any more if this becomes a series, but I did enjoy it, and I'm happy to have read it. The next book that I finished this week, I finished this morning, and that was The Hole by Hiroko Yamamada. This is, I think, only the second new book that I've bought this year. Maybe the first, actually. I don't know if I bought any other. No, I did. I was in Ohio with my best friend and her husband, and they wanted to go book shopping, so I did buy this at the dreaded B&N. I don't usually shop there, but I saw this one, and I just couldn't pass it up because I've been wanting to read this one for a long time. I've had this on my want to read list since like 2020. I think I first heard Jen Campbell talk about this book and this author. This follows Asa, who is married a few years. She works part-time in an office. Her husband has a good job, but he gets a different job, and that job's going to be way further away from where they live in the city. So in the very first pages of this book, they decide to move to the countryside near his parents' house. So Asa's husband's parents' house. And it turns out that they have a guest house that Asa didn't realize. There's a lot of things about her husband's family that Asa was not aware of before she moved out to the countryside. But Asa's mother-in-law, father-in-law, and grandfather-in-law all live out in the countryside, only 30 minutes from where her husband is going to start working. And Asa's super happy when her mother-in-law says they don't have to pay rent on this guest house and they can just live there for free. But Asa, once she gets situated there, realizes that there's really not much for her to do. And she's torn about the idea of being a housewife, especially because she doesn't want children and she doesn't have children. The fact that she used to work, even if it was only part-time. So this whole book is kind of just dealing with Asa's feelings on that and her getting to know her family members. And then one day she sees a strange creature and she follows it onto like the plain lands by the river, and she falls into a hole. And that's basically what the back tells you. Is the story really about that? I don't know. You know, is that maybe the hole is more like metaphor? There was a lot to think about in this book. There was a lot to unpick, but it was quite nebulous and it was quite inconclusive, so you can definitely come up with your own interpretations of what some of the meanings of some of the things that Asa sees and goes through is about. But I really, really liked it. Like, what a weird little book. What a fun, weird little book. A book that really nothing happens in, so be prepared for that. It kind of sounds like it'll be monumental from the back of the book, but it's really not. And there's not a lot of like shocking moments, or there's not like a punch at the end of this extremely short novella. It's just an interesting book that makes you think about different things, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I'm super happy to have bought this new and finally ticked it off my want to read list. So those are the first 2 books that I've read this week so far. I'm also reading Silver Sparrow on audio. I've had this book by Tayari Jones for quite a long time. I've read 2 other Tayari Jones books, one short story that I really liked, her most famous work, An American Marriage, which was really interesting. I think that's what it's called. I actually don't remember. So far I'm liking it. Today I have to work. I have to go all around. I'm excited this weekend to hopefully film my first Herkid update. I'm still super stoked on Herkid and it's super fun so far, and I'm having a really fun time slotting things into the prompts, so you'll get to see that. And yeah, when I read some more, I will let you know. Okay, I did end up finishing Silver Sparrow. I finished this on July 30th. Wait, or 31st. No, 30th. Because I was thinking that, oh, I gotta finish up because July 31st is Friday and that's the end of this vlog. But I forgot that I switched the vlogs to be from Monday to Sunday instead of from Saturday to Friday. I don't even know why they were originally Saturday to Friday. That doesn't make any sense to me. Although I did kind of like that the weekend was in the beginning of the vlog, so you'd see more exciting stuff, and then my outro could kind of be like the end of the week, which is like not the exciting, whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is that Monday to Sunday, which is how I organize my weeks in my work and in my life, is hopefully going to be much easier if I can remember that that is how I've organized it. So I did end up finishing Silver Sparrow by Tayari Jones. This is about 2 young girls who have the same father. So our main character, Dana, is the first perspective that we get, and she is the illegitimate daughter of a man. This story starts with her being young and learning about her history and learning about her dad and learning about her mother and her father's relationship, and it's just about her and her mother and how they do this relationship, how they manage this relationship, how they manage their lives, knowing that they are the secret family of this man. And then there's another part and another main character, and that is Bunny Charisse. And that is the legitimate daughter of this man, and it's about her at the age that we leave off from Dana, discovering this situation for herself as well. So it's very interesting. I did really enjoy it. I flew through it. It's only like an 8-hour, 9-hour audiobook, and I was reading it on 2 times speed because that was what was comfortable for me. Nothing like really tragic or horrible happened. There was not sexual assault. There was not super violent things. There is like fear and worry, but like it was nice to read a story where it wasn't, you know, horrible, but it was still a dramatic, interesting story about these 2 girls and their lives and this realization and how it might feel as a young woman growing up with a father who doesn't outwardly support her or doesn't outwardly love her or doesn't outwardly acknowledge her even. Yeah, it was really interesting. I liked it a lot. I thought it was really good. This is the 3rd Tayari Jones book I've read, I mentioned earlier. I look forward to reading more. I have Leaving Atlanta, and I have a couple, I think I have one more of hers. I definitely want to read Kin, her latest book that came out this year in 2026. So this was the last book that I read in July, which is nice for this vlog. You can always go to all my weekly updates to see my more in-depth thoughts in books, but I will also be making my July reading wrap-up, which has a quicker version of all my thoughts of the books that I've read throughout the month. I did actually finish another book because I finished a book this morning, and it is Saturday, August 1st. The first book that I finished in August was Chibi Vampire, and this is by Yuna Kagasaki, and it is translated from the Japanese by Alexis Kirsch. I read this as my graphic novel of the month. I'm trying to read a graphic novel every month in 2026. I'm also trying to read a NYRB book every month in 2026, but I did skip my NYRB book in July, sadly. This is a YA manga having to do with Karen, who is a vampire, but she's a very different kind of vampire because she does not drain people's blood. She actually gives them blood, which gives them energy and gives them confidence. Her family are regular vampires, so they think she's super weird, and she's also like very awkward. Since she's alone because the rest of her family have to sleep during the day, she often gets into scrapes, and her sister in the twilight time or when it's cloudy out or at night fixes her messes and cleans up after her. In the beginning of this story, we meet Karen and we meet her family. Then we see a new boy who's coming to her school, and she right away has thoughts about this new boy. When she meets him, she gets the feeling that she gets when she needs to donate blood. So her vampirism and her blood letting happens like once a month, or when she is around someone who lets her blood like boil, I guess, for the lack of a better word, like when it like gets her blood riled up. So this is a weird one because it's definitely YA, but it is also definitely like weirdly sexual and has some like weirdly sexual parts to it. So I would call this like upper YA, but it's definitely not explicit or necessarily even like, you know how manga sometimes they draw the outline of the girl's panties and stuff like that. Like it's not even that far. It's still appropriate for YA, but it's definitely sexual, so I would say upper YA. That is the last book that I read this week so far. I do have tomorrow that I could potentially finish another book, but I'm kind of in the middle of a bunch of books, so I doubt that I will be finishing anything else. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I read here. Let me know what you thought of them. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!